Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of Reality Shifting at Shifter's Cove. Thank you for listening to this podcast, and I want to introduce the second guest, Misha.
Hi.
Introduce yourself. Thank you. So today our topic is going to be on channeling, tarot, divination, stuff like that. But before we do that, I'm going to interview Misha about shifting and just her journey with it. Okay, so
Uh, they. Sorry.
yeah, sorry,
My
same
pronouns.
phone.
My pronouns are they, he.
Sorry. They he. I'm still working on it. Forgive me, guys. I'm gonna be interviewing him about his journey in shifting.
All
Okay.
right.
So, how did you discover shifting, and what was that like?
Like everybody else, I found out about it through TikTok. I think it was one of those videos where it was like this person crying and being like, "I just came back from spending 6 months at Hogwarts," and for like the first few weeks, I completely dismissed it as like nothing, because
Yeah.
obviously. But I was already kind of into spirituality, and I was like already like moving away because I'm like I grew up Christian, raised
Mhm.
Christian, all that kind of sort of stuff, and I was moving away from that through a bunch of podcasters and like progressive Christianity that were like
Mhm.
teetering on spirituality, and I kind of like broached the topic with my patron deity, who is actually funny enough the one of the primary Christian deities, Yeshua,
Mhm.
and he was like, "Well, what do you think?" And I was like, well, I don't know what to think. That's why I'm asking you. Obviously, this conversation is dramatized. It didn't like happen that exact way, but like
Right.
kind of the gist of that. And after a while, I was like, well, I mean, it's worth a shot because I feel such like I resonate so much with shifting
Mhm.
and with the idea of the multiverse. Um, that I was like, well, I mean, it's worth a shot to like try and shift because like if shifting is real and I don't shift, then like think of all the things I could be missing out. But if shifting isn't real and like I'm trying to shift, um, then like it's basically the same thing as what I've always been doing. It's just this reality, except now maybe like a little bit better.
Mhm. Yeah. Really, I really liked how you brought up how spirituality was already a thing with you before that, and I definitely can agree with that. Right before shifting, I just only started learning and using the law of attraction to manifest stuff. So I just like you, when I heard about it, I was like, oh my god, this has to be fake. These people are deluding themselves. But you know what? Let me keep open mind, because there was a time where I didn't believe in the law of attraction. But then I started using it, and I'm like, okay, this is real. Kind of like how people talk about astral projection or lucid dreams as it's a fact. And that's how I look at shifting. Like, I haven't shifted before, and I haven't lucid dreamed or astral projected before, but I actually feel like they're all true, because there's so
Yeah.
many people talking about them, and there was a time where we all didn't know about this, and we eventually learned or experienced it. So I mean, was there something that kind of validated shifting's actualness or realness to you, or you just kind of always like you said, you always kind of believed in it?
It was kind of like a case of I've always been in that. What really like validated for me was like the connection I had beforehand. And
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about this on my TikTok before
Mm-hmm.
on a series of videos I just did, but I've always felt connected to my DR. It is like a very specific DR
Mm-hmm.
that I always like sort of knew about when I was a little kid. And even as a little kid, I had this compulsion to connect every single story I wrote together.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like I kind of already understood the concept of shifting even before I found out about shifting, because a lot of my stories that I wrote revolved around the idea of dimensional travel. So when I like found out about shifting, it was like, oh, this is what I've already been writing about, except the mechanics are a little bit different because it's not physically traveling from one dimension to another. It's like
Right.
moving your consciousness through those dimensions. And it kind of also helps that I kind of innately know how to lucid dream. That was like something I discovered as a little kid. So
Nice.
that made that super easy for me. I haven't been able to shift with the lucid dream method, but it has been the closest I've gotten.
Right. Yeah, I heard about how a lot of people shifted to the lucid dream method. I found that interesting. So, for you, like, it's like when you attempt it, like just nothing happens, or like describe how you attempt to shift through your lucid dreams.
For me, it's more of a difficulty of I'm not in like I have to even remember first off when I get into a lucid dream because often, and I've had my guides be very upset because lucid dreams are some of the only places where I can like talk to my guides like in depth. Like I've seen characters in my dreams that when I wake up I'm like I know that that person was one of my guides. And
Mm-hmm.
I've even had a situation where I've had a guide talk to me through lucid dreaming. And I've literally like I've had a situation where it was like literally they were like you should lucid dream now. And I'm like no, I don't think I will. And I walk into another part of the dream. But
Right.
when that doesn't happen, what tends to happen is that I'm not very focused. I'm not super concentrated. I'm trying to get to the void state from my lucid dream,
Yeah.
and it's very hard for me to figure out how to make it so that my dream disappears completely
Mm-hmm.
and I enter the void while not throwing myself into another dream. Because usually, when my dream goes dark or black or turns into the void, I start to panic and it pulls
Right.
me into another dream.
Yeah. About the yeah, I heard a lot about the void state. Like it's like when you're so focused or you let go, that you're like in like kind of like a crossroads, if I remember correctly, right? Of
Yeah.
like pretty much doing anything. And I think during my first shifting attempt, I I think I came close enough to it because I was trying the Raven method. I was trying to shift to the show Supernatural, and I remember I was laying down for a while and I just kind of like lost any conscious thought. I just sat there and just really experienced the moment. And when that happened, I felt myself being pulled and pulled, and it's weird. Like flashing lights started appearing in my eyes, it started spinning around, and it was just pure darkness and pure calmness. And then I kind of felt like I was in a car because in that show there's like an emphasis on a car, and I heard a character's talking. So I think it's interesting. I definitely agree. The voice state is definitely something that somebody would want to try to experience or try to get so they can complete their shifting process. But yeah, it's always interesting to hear about people's opinions on the voice state because I don't know. It's like it seems like whenever somebody talks about it, they have the most success with it. Definitely.
I came across a series of Reddit posts of a person who was researching the void state thoroughly, and one of the things that they like talked about, and one of the things that my guides have kind of like I guess one most of the information I have from shifting is a combination of research and things that like I have experienced with my guides of them like me receiving information from them and then it clicking and it being like, "Oh, like I'm pretty sure that that's how that's supposed to go." And one of the things that both they and the Reddit person talked about was the fact that when you shift, it seems like what happens is you will always enter the void state before you fully shift, even
Mm-hmm.
if it is for a brief period of time.
Yeah.
Because when you're in that transition, you have to enter the void to get, because you're dissociating yourself from your current reality.
Mm-hmm.
So every time that happens, you will enter the void first, even if it's for like a second, and then you will start shifting to your desired reality. So it makes sense that people would have more success when they're like trying to get to the step before you shift because
Yeah.
it makes it like it's less of a leap because when you're in the void state it's like you experience nothing and in a weird sort of paradoxical kind of way it's like if I'm experiencing nothing then I could experience anything, which makes it easier to get to your DR because you don't have to jump straight from I'm in a bedroom to now I'm on a train to Hogwarts because it's such a jarring thing.
Yeah.
So I feel like that transitional thing with the void state does make it easier for a lot of people to shift.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. I wanted to ask you because I noticed you talked about how you written like original stories and characters, and I actually did something similar myself before. I kind of written my own universe, lore, and multiverse of characters and different beings. Like when you write, do you think like because this reality obviously exists in its own reality within the multiverse? Do you think you're tapping into that reality to write these characters? Or I guess they're not really characters per se, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like,
Yeah.
do you feel like you're tapping into this universe somehow, and that's what's kind of like jotting down on what you write down, or the concept, the concept that you create?
that's I've actually come to realize that that's like the majority of what I'm doing with my writing, because
Yeah.
that was one of the things that kind of um, dawned upon me through a tarot reading I had gotten from, oh, I forgot their name, Parker on TikTok. I
Mhm.
don't know if their TikTok is still like public or anything, but they used to be a big Lord of the Rings shifter, and that's how I found them.
Mhm.
And I got a tarot reading from them, and one of the questions I asked is, do I have like any like clairvoyant, clairaudient, psychic abilities? And the one thing they said was channeling, and it
Mhm.
kind of clicked because um, one of the things that happened before I found out about shifting was I had started to really connect with one of my characters, one of my Skyrim OCs,
Mhm.
and with them it was very different from like all the other past characters. Of like when I wrote for him, it felt like it was coming so easily. Like it felt like
Yeah.
everything was clicking into place, and that was like the first time that that really happened. So I think me channeling that character and that character's story is what allowed me to be able to sort of almost gave the signal to my guides that I was ready to learn and receive information about shifting,
Mhm.
because then I would be able to easier to it would be easier to channel them and my DR in order to continue to learn about shifting.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel that the big reason I believe in shifting is because of I've been channeling my specific desired reality since about the age of 6 or 7.
Oh, wow, very impressive. I mean, honestly, I wish I could. Honestly, I always wanted. I only did like minimal channeling, but that's just amazing. I just can't imagine how exciting it could be to channel what you want, your realities, the people you want. While we're at the topic of channeling, did you have a session of channeling which you can like bring up or talk about, which was the most interesting or something that shocked you maybe?
It's I don't have sessions of channeling per se.
Mm-hmm.
What tends to happen is that I'm in a consistent base of like channeling back and forth
Mm-hmm.
between me and not all of my guides. I don't usually tend to channel my deities. It's mostly the people between me and my DR. Um, it's difficult to explain because I think this is a specific setup that my guides, a spirit for my DR set up for me so that I could have consistent communication with four very specific people. And I'm constantly channeling them, and it's it's like an internal monologue almost
Mm-hmm.
that happens throughout the day. And I don't know how I got to that point, and that's the one thing is like everyone's asking me, how do you do it, how do you do it? I don't know. It's been a thing that's been happening since I was 6, that I'd like thought this person was an imaginary friend,
Yeah.
and this specific person just stuck around since then. And then when I found out about shifting around December, the December after I found out, they like stepped up and they were like, actually, you've been channeling me the entire time. They didn't use that word per se. She didn't use that word exactly because neither of us had the language to really describe what was happening. But she was like, you've been like doing this for like super long time. So and it's kind of almost, I've gotten to a point where I take it for granted that I have this ability, and like it's hard for me to like imagine a world where I'm not constantly channeling those like soulmates, because they are that was one of the things that I like asked the tarot reader Parker, is if they were my soulmates, and that's why, and if that's why I had the ability to channel them, and that's what I got best as the answer, is that that's why that happened. So it's not any specific moment. It's just like every day I'm asking them stuff and they're answering, and every day we're trying to like work a little closer to be able to allow myself to have that mindset that will help me shift, because that is something that I've been definitely working on, is trying to get myself out of the mindset that I was raised with, and trying to put myself into a mindset that will help me shift.
Great answer. That was beautiful. I mean, honestly, if you're listening right now, if you want to look into channeling, definitely look into it. But just be careful. Make sure you know what you're doing and protect yourself. And honestly, channeling helps you connect to your DR. I mean, all the tarot readings I got from my DR really, really helped me connect to it. And I'm sure you heard how people do channel letters before,
Yeah.
and I can't tell you. Oh my god, like I written so many letters, and like I would ask for a specific sign, and dude, like I would always like I'll ask for 333 or 444, specific angel numbers, and like literally the hour or the next day I would get it back immediately. And I remember one channel letter. It was to one of my SOs, and I written specifically for me to see two cardinal birds, and I can actually send you this picture after the show if you don't believe me. So, viewers, I promise I'm not lying. If I can, I'll try to link the picture. But when I looked outside my window, there were two cardinal birds, literally the next day. It was crazy. So I definitely believe in channel letters, and I had so much luck with it. You know, it's just crazy. Like it's always really exciting knowing that somebody from the DR got your letters. You know.
And I am kind of happy to see that there are a lot more shifters who are delving into spirituality, because one of the things that I'm like firmly something that like needs to be understood throughout the shifting community is that it's like a very shifting is a very personal journey, and a lot of the times it will like kickstart a lot of growth, like to get you into the next phases of life and to get you to like just a better place emotionally and mentally and just all around. And I because one thing that's for sure is shifting. When I found out about shifting, it definitely kickstarted my own period of growth where I was able to cut off a bunch of toxic friends, and I was able to like start realizing and like start analyzing things about my own life that needed to change, and start analyzing like the mindsets that I needed to change to be able to achieve this goal. And through spirituality, a lot of people are able to like better themselves, and I'm starting to actually see like more shifters come out and be like, yeah, I channel my characters a lot, and I've been able to do this. And that's why I talk about Parker, why I mentioned Parker, because Parker in the past has like started talking about her experiences channeling her DR, and that's part of how I found her. Not just the Lord of the Rings, but the fact that she before swapped her primary DR, one of the things she was doing was channeling characters from her Lord of the Rings DR.
Oh right. Yeah. Like I definitely agree. Like shifting has brought me into the world of tarot, divination, stuff like that, and ever since then, I feel like I've become more knowledgeable, more aware, more creative. Like I think shifting is, like you said, is definitely like, especially like when it first started popping off. We were just starting this pandemic. It brought a sense of creativity. You know, with me like finding these pre-made worlds and kind of carving myself in. For example, my main DR is an anime DR, specifically of Rosario plus Vampire, but I add different animes into the same world and try to like connect them, and it was really fun. And it was really fun just trying to write and just imagining how all these characters are interacting. I think that's the beauty of shifting. Like you said, it's a personal journey. You can make whatever DR you want. Wherever you go, it's up to you. It's nobody else's choice, you know. And I wanted to ask you, because since you brought up it's a personal journey, and I definitely agree. I'm not sure if you saw, but on the subreddit there has been some like drama about race changing and stuff like that. And I wanted to know your kind of like, if you feel like talking about it, your kind of perspective on that.
On race changing specifically,
Yeah, and shifting since that's a big issue for some people.
I think that is a very complicated question, and a lot of people in this reality are assuming a lot of things, because one of the things that I've come to sort of realize is that when you're, and take this, don't misunderstand me when I say this, but shifting has made me realize that morality is kind of a social construct. Like, because when you're in different realities, the way those realities develop differently, they could have different moral rules, or because of the different ways those realities operate, morality is different in those different realities. So when you say you can't change your race, you're looking at it from a perspective of our morality, of this reality's moral standing, of because in this reality it's not really possible to change your race. And a lot of people who've tried are usually tried to change their race or pass themselves off of a different race are usually doing it out of some sort of gross, like from a not great point of view of like they're trying to pass themselves off because they want to be seen as like oppressed, or they want to be seen as this thing or that thing. And while I'm not like explicitly for it or against it, where I can't say there's a really clear cut answer.
Mm-hmm.
It does definitely worth saying that it's not just race changing. It's the fact that you can change your species, you can change all kinds of characteristics about yourself, and maybe there's another reality where people are arguing if you can change your species from like a wolf to a cheetah in a different reality, because that's how they view things morally in their reality. So ultimately, I think it really like what matters most is like where you're coming from. If you're changing something about yourself because you want to have that genuine experience of I want to be able to experience something from somebody else's point of view, so I'm like putting myself in a position where I will be treated differently because I want to have that sense of empathy for that person when I shift back. But it's really more about like the intention of why you're doing that. So it's not a clear cut answer, and the problem with spirituality is that a lot of things are never clear cut answers. So when it comes to race changing, when it comes to and even like gender changing or adding different features or like shifting to a reality where there's no homophobia or no transphobia or that kind of stuff, because that was one of the other problems is people going around saying that if you script in transphobia and homophobia or leave it in your script, you're a bad person, which is not true, because that wouldn't eliminate that there's transphobia and homophobia in other realities. It would just mean that you don't experience transphobia and homophobia in your reality. So you're not really doing anything for anybody else except for yourself.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, everything's subjective. People have different intentions. Every reality is different. That's a great question. It's like you said, it's really hard to answer. I mean, it, I just try to let people do like I don't try to look into it too much because I don't know why it's been a big controversy, but I just try to let people if you want to write or script this or script that, it's up to you. In the end, it's your journey. You're gonna be the one who's shifting. That's how I look at it, really. So, do you have like any specific DRs or a main DR or something that you're interested in shifting to first, or?
My main desired reality, it does link back to the all the stories I wrote as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And the primary story that I was working on and kind of still am is a giant multiverse DR, which is basically if I was ever a fan of a piece of media, or if I like got invested into a piece of media in some way, shape, or form,
Mm-hmm.
it is present in my DR somehow. Even if it's not specifically in that universe, it will be like in an adjacent universe that I can travel to, or like it will be I'll be able to get there through physical traveling, because the main feature of my DR is that traveling across the multiverse physically is a thing that we're able to do without causing, to use a multiverse of madness terms, without causing incursions or collapsing realities. We can travel back and forth between different multiverses and different dimensions. And two, it is a reality where a lot of things take place on the same planet. So, Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter take place on the same Earth,
Oh
and
wow.
a lot of Disney shows and a lot of Marvel things happen on that same planet, and it was very interesting for me because, like you said with your anime DR, I started noticing things that to like a person who isn't aware of my reality, it would be easily brushed off. But because I have like the knowledge and the ability to channel my DR and to like ask my guides and to like put those things together, it starts making sense. Which, for a specific example, I was watching Doctor Strange, rewatching it after I found out about shifting,
Mm-hmm.
and they make a one-off comment about the Sorcerer Supreme having like being of Celtic descent, which in the movie didn't make a lot of sense, but to me it made perfect sense because in my reality, everybody who is typically people who are of Celtic descent are elven because elves were the first people to use that magic, and elves later wound up descending into humans that were Irish, Welsh, Scottish, because in this reality, those were the people groups that J.R.R. Tolkien based the elves off of. So in my reality, like a lot of the people who live in Ireland are descended from elves,
Hmm.
and there's been a lot of instances where people in my reality have been able to trace magic, like wild magics, to the magic that elves have because that is the lineage that they have. So it explains a lot about the Sorcerer Supreme. It also recontextualizes things because that means she wasn't drawing her ability to live long from Dormammu like she was in the movie, but in my
Hmm.
reality it means she simply lived long because she was part elven, and that's also why she gravitated to magic in my reality because she was part elven. So it recontextualizes a lot of things, and there's a lot of things that I've been connecting to try and weave together. And obviously, I'm not going to be able to get everything all the way because my reality is it's really difficult to be able to understand a reality that's so saturated in magic when the
Hmm.
reality that we live in doesn't have a lot of obvious presentations of magic. So it's something I know I'll never be able to like comprehend while I'm here, while I haven't shifted, but it's definitely something I'm striving to understand. And so basically my DR is a giant crossover multiverse DR, which gives me the ability to travel back and forth from a bunch of different dimensions without having to ever shift my consciousness. And it's also one where people, when I go there, people are going to be aware of what shifting is, and people are going to be aware that I shift back and forth regularly from my CR to my DR. And that's one of the things that I haven't seen very often. There aren't a lot of people who make it so that shifting is known about in their DR, but that's definitely one of the things that happened for me, and that's like going to be a given considering the fact that I channel my soulmates and
Hmm.
they're part of my DR and they know.
Oh man, that now that sounds like I'm sorry, that DR sounds epic. I mean, with mixing so many different types of media, there's so much you can endlessly experience and crossovers and everything. I mean, my God, I can't even imagine like once you shift there, you're gonna have like so many opportunities and meet so many different characters and events and things. That definitely sounds like a thrill ride. But going back to like how you mentioned the multiverse of madness, it was interesting watching that movie because like when Wanda was like dream walking, I like, hey, that's shifting. That's literally shifting. She was focusing her mind using the dark holes to kind of find a reality where she had Billy and Tommy. So that was really interesting. I'm sure you kind of agree with me that the
Yeah.
multiverse of madness, like it kind of like worded things slightly different, but the same premise was there. It was very interesting how Wanda transferred her consciousness into a different Wanda, and that's pretty much how shifting was. is pretty much. It's so interesting, like seeing how that was represented in a mainstream film, and I was really excited to see. And about channeling, I also had something to mention. Because I also got some tarot readings off of Etsy. Specifically, this one is unnamed tarot. You can find her on Etsy. I got plenty of readings from her. Pretty amazing. I remember so to explain, a lot of my SOs for my anime DR know that I'm attempting to shift to them. I explained in my letter; they're aware of it, and they kind of look forward to me shifting toward them. And I remember one time because I usually try to write all their letters in the same sitting, and for one of the characters, I'm not gonna lie, it was a lot shorter than the other ones, and I remember asking the reader how did each one of these people felt about my letters, and surprisingly enough, they mentioned how specifically in this cards in this scenario, Mizure, she was kind of upset because her letter was a lot shorter, and that was crazy. Like just how that tarot reader really connected, like it just kind of validated shifting even more. Because like I'm telling you, the girl's letter like really wasn't that long compared to the other ones, and it was just really shocking to hear her say that. And another interesting thing when it came to tarot and channeling for me was I remember I asked her like how they have they ever visited this reality, tried to astral project to see this reality at all, and they said yes. And I remember I when I was asked about like when I asked her about it, she brought up how Mizure, the same person, was laughing because she saw me spill over like a whole bunch of, because at work one day I spilled over a whole bunch of fruit, and the tarot reader also mentioned how I spilled over some type of, she heard Mizure say spill fruit when she was channeling her. So I was just really really shocking and just really excited to hear that like these characters in some sort of way. I don't know how, because our reality is different from theirs. They were able to like visualize me in this reality, and it just makes me really excited. Just like just know like through tarot, like what these people feel and think and all that stuff. You know, I don't know. It's just with tarot, is a lot of unlimited possibilities and limited questions that could be answered from for anybody who's interested. Really, um, have you ever thought about asking or channeling anybody from your DR to try to like visit you in some sort of way, or try to like astral project to this reality if possible?
I've asked one of my soulmates, her name is Chaya. She was the one who I've been channeling since
Mm-hmm.
I was like a little kid. She's the current avatar, as in Avatar, the bender of all four elements in my
Right.
reality. She has been researching shifting a lot, and one of the things that we are going to try to do when we shift is we're going to try and figure out if there is a way to get her to shift into at least a parallel version of this reality where she exists, because I know
Mm-hmm.
there have been some conflicts about that, of like whether or not you can get a character to shift back to your reality.
Right.
My answer, my theory is yes, but it won't be the same reality you shifted from. But that doesn't matter because you're never shifting back to the same reality that you left
Mm-hmm.
from. You're just shifting to a parallel version of your CR, which I
Mm-hmm.
could go into that. But one of my other characters, soulmates, is Thranduil, and I'm pretty sure I've had at least one past life with him. And one of the things he's told me is that he's never gonna visit here because he's used to like such a different way of like how things work that
Mm-hmm.
like every time he looks over here, he's like, y'all are really a hot mess, and I'm sorry, I love you, but I am not visiting there. Chai, on the other hand, is like, yeah, I'll come, I'll hang out, I'll probably like make your CR my new DR, and we'll like probably like hang back and forth. And they don't necessarily astral project to me, part of because of the little setup I have going on that one of my spirit guides set up, which is they are currently shifted into my waiting room, which I call the dream realm, which
Mm-hmm.
is I'm unsure what it is entirely. I think it's some kind of realm that is adjacent to my psyche in some way that they're
Mm-hmm.
able to channel back and forth with me very often through through being in the dream realm. But I definitely want to experiment a lot with like shifting and just like how people have like been like, oh, I'm gonna close this book off and I'm not gonna touch it, and then I'm gonna shift, read the book, and then tell you someone what happens. And then I want to definitely experiment with having people from other realities come into this one. And one of the most interesting things that I think would be fun to do is just like do a brain scan while you have someone shifting, like see if there's any difference in the brainwaves, because I know there are like they've done brain scans of people who are lucid dreaming and astral projecting and find that there are like difference in the brainwaves from just a person who's normally resting. But yeah, to get to the answer of the question, because I have ADHD, so I've been going jumping around everywhere
No,
this
that's
whole
fine.
podcast.
That's fine.
I definitely I don't think any of my characters have astral projected to me. They do like have an awareness of what's happening to me in my reality. I will definitely try to experiment with having one of my characters shift into this or a parallel version of this reality. And I will definitely ask around once I shift, because I'm sure there's like a handful of other characters who are at least interested in being like, yeah, okay, that sounds like it might be a fun time, like shifting just to visit. Thranduil, however, at least the Thranduil from my reality, has said he is not visiting here.
Honestly, I can't blame him. I mean, because I remember one reading I got. I asked a similar question, and they all said that they weren't interested because in their realities, there are monsters, snow women, succubi, stuff like that. I mean, and they wouldn't be because that's a core version of themselves. Like that's who they are. Just like how me and you're human beings, they are those type of people, and they find that the limitations that will be in this reality will be something that they wouldn't want to experience. So I definitely can't blame your SO. Definitely can't blame mine because it's such a big step. It's definitely a big step from what they're used to. Definitely. Um, so I wanted to ask for this is also another topic I'm always interested to hear people like opinion on. Like when it comes to, I mean, your DR since it's a multiverse, and I'm assuming there are going to be times depending on your DR self where you might have to find yourself in combat potentially. A lot of people like have a little bit of mixed feelings about combat because like when you defend yourself, for example, I know somebody said who was in a Star Wars ship, they're like when they have to fight stormtroopers, they're afraid of accidentally killing them because they, in our reality and in many realities, it's definitely like a not the good thing to kill somebody, but in self-defense, do you think that's something that could be argued, or do you think it's like such a broad topic that would be hard to like discuss per se about killing in UDR? I guess.
Um, when it comes to, again, with the morality is subjective in different realities.
Yeah.
When it comes to killing in my DR, usually I would say like in self defense, that's like this like the standard. Um, because it's really interesting because when it comes to killing in different realities, there can be like a moral standard for that of like most people can commonly agree that doing it in self-defense is fine, and I would definitely be one of those people who are like, I don't think it would be good to shift to a reality where you just kill for fun, because even though technically that reality already exists, and that reality, like, you are not going to stop that reality from happening by shifting there or by not shifting there, it's still something that you don't want to experience. It's like not something that is healthy, I feel, to experience. But when it comes to killing in any reality, self defense is probably like the blanket things of it's a little bit easier to be able to identify whether or not that's like a thing that you can do because of the experience that you're having. And for my reality, at least, I know when it comes to the morality there, we do have, because conflict and battles have always plagued my reality, especially because it's a multiverse reality.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely already like pre-approved rules in place about like what you can do and what you can't do, because my character specifically is part of a council of an organization that I currently don't know the name of. I used to call it one thing when I was a little kid, but I've recently had my guides tell me that that's not what it's called in my reality, or the name has recently been changed for whatever reason. But they are a multiversal organization. Kind of think of Starfleet from Star Trek. It's like
Mm-hmm.
that's the people I'm working with in my DR, and I'm part of like the leadership team for that organization, and they definitely already like have it in of like training people who are going to be in combat scenarios to know when to use force and when not to use force, and when is it okay to like kill a target either because the target is someone who's going to be almost impossible to rehabilitate, or because the target is not human. Like I know there's like a certain class of dark spirit or demon, or that I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I've seen it in part of my channelings, that is, it's basically kill on sight because they're not human, they're not really like entities that can be rehabilitated. And it's definitely like my reality has these rules in place of like when it is and isn't okay to kill. They're, again, they're not, I don't know if they're perfect because no reality is perfect, but it's definitely a lot more thoughtful than some of the than what it seems the rules are in other realities. Like in Star Wars, in the movies, and in the movies from what I've seen, it's not really touched upon the fact that a lot of the stormtroopers, even if they're like even if some of the stormtroopers, like in the Clone Wars, they're clones, they're still individuals and people.
Mm-hmm.
And the stormtroopers, the last Star Wars movie definitely did try to touch upon stormtroopers rebelling, and it's not something that the higher ups in that reality think about. So in that case, I think like maybe it would be up to the person who shifts there to make it aware to the higher ups, hey, these are people, maybe we shouldn't like be blanket shooting them. So if you can, if you're in like a reality where it's like you're feeling off about something and you are in like a position to like make a change, you again, a lot of complexities.
Yeah.
A lot of people, and there's also the argument to be made of like, are you really changing something? I argue that in some instances, yeah, you can change things in a reality because things are never going to go the way you expect, and you could potentially like kick off a chain of events that could improve your DR in a way that you didn't expect.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's one thing that kind of makes me like one of my DRs is the MCU, and it makes me a little nervous, like kind of tweaking or kind of scripting certain things out. Like for example, one of my SOs is Wanda, and like one of my scripts, my script kind of talks about trying to rehabilitate her, try to help her. But honestly, you don't know like if that makes it better or worse, because in the current reality MCU that we watch, I mean, she went on the dark end, so it definitely makes me nervous on morality. Like, should I even be trying to tamper or help her at all? Or will I be making things worse? Because another thing with that MCUDR, it makes me very nervous being a hero because if let's say hypothetically I stop a villain, put them away, and they break out again and do the same thing, would that be on my hands? Would that blood be on my hands? I think that would be something that might eat away at my psyche a little bit. So it's definitely like it just really depends on the DR, really. And of course you can always script out that you can always script that, oh, you'll never be able to kill anybody. You can incapacitate them maybe or something like that. So if you're listening, you can always script. I mean, your script is pretty much the word of everything. So script what you want. If you don't feel comfortable, script something out or script something in that can prevent or make something better for you. So definitely consider that when making your script. And I wanted to ask you, have you ever scripted a certain event in your DR that you're looking forward to once you shift it at all?
Scripting is very complex for me.
Mm-hmm.
I've never actively scripted anything like written it down on paper.
Mm-hmm.
I have like thought about like possibilities and like things that could happen, but my DR is like the kind of DR that I don't think I will ever be able to fully channel again because there's so much magic and so many differences from one reality to another that I don't really have a good frame of reference to be able to understand like how things are going to play out because there's so much context that I'm missing. For me, my scripting has been less about like certain things and more about like writing out certain events and scripting that certain things will happen and more about like channeling and like getting a channeled sort of feel of like what the dynamics are between things and how things will play out. So scripting for me is really weird. I have a script in the sense that my waiting room is scripted, and I
Mm-hmm.
have a script in the sense that I have a safety script of like no one can die around me. I can't be killed in that reality. Which, funny enough, those safety scripts were also mechanics that I added into play around middle school into one of my stories. That I made it like a mechanic that I could not be killed in that other reality. I could only be killed if you shifted to the reality or physically traveled to the reality that I was from. Because in my original story, I self inserted a character who was a multiverse traveler, and they could not be killed in any of the other multiverses that they went to. You had to go to their origin universe in order to kill them. So that was added into my safety script, and all that those sort of things are added into my safety script. But really, it's more like me thinking of possible events and possible scenarios that could happen with the full awareness that they might not play out the way that I'm imagining them because there are going to be different events and different circumstances. There are like a couple things of vague events that I'm aware of, like there's the event that in a series of events that happens when I kind of accidentally unleash a demon in my reality that kicks off another chain of events that cause me to have to resurrect ancient beings and ancient spirits to banish those demons. And then after that happens, I know there's like an instance of me deciding to form a council to specifically for the purpose of researching the multiverse and reality shifting and dimensional travel. And I also know there is an instance of me helping one of my other soulmates, Kari, who was my Skyrim OC, who I later found out was one of my soulmates, and I will be going to Skyrim to help him because he got himself trapped in my reality, doing something, I don't know what, that he got in trouble. He trapped himself in my reality, and I'm going to be helping him go back to his home reality and sort of fix all of everything that he apparently messed up a bunch of stuff. And I know that that's an event that's going to take place, and I know vague ideas of what's going to take place. There's no specific event where I scripted in detail, so I don't have like pages and pages of scripts. It's more like I get the gist of what's going to happen, and the longer I go, like, sort of feeling that might happen, the more it's like, yeah, I think I've been feeling for like a few months now that this event is going to happen. I think I'm going to do like a little bit more of like thinking about it to see like what could happen surrounding that event and that kind of stuff. So that's usually how I form out like what characters might be there or what things might happen. And I also know at the beginning of my quote-unquote script or timeline, I will be, like, trapped in the Boiling Isles, and I also get the sense that Amphibia and the Boiling Isles are on the same plane of existence, based on both stuff that I've gotten from my channel, and based off, funny enough, some crossover stuff, some unofficial, non-technically canon crossover stuff that happened here. And so I get a basic gist of like a timeline of events that's going to happen. I don't have anything in depth, but there are like people I'm looking forward to seeing, and like I'm definitely looking forward to those events happening in depth so that I know what's going to like happen. And it's that's kind of how my scripting works, of the basic script and then a vibe of what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, I know like it's kind of mixed up. Some people have really long, detailed scripts. They have their whole backstory and everything, and how this is gonna happen or that's gonna happen. I think your version of a script is definitely interesting because when you shift eventually, you're gonna enter a world where you don't know what to expect. You know, it's just like how we live in our CR. You know, we don't know what the next day is gonna bring, and I think that's definitely interesting. We don't know what to expect, so definitely, I mean, it definitely has a lot more. There's going to be a lot of surprises once you shift, and I think that's going to be fun. Definitely, that sounds like a lot of fun. I know you didn't script a lot, but for the person that you're going to be shifting to into your DR, is there any more information you have about your DR self that you might want to share or you find interesting, like their original reality, maybe?
Of my DR self.
Yeah.
I know that my DR self, what the backstory I had set up when I was a kid, is that when the person who I am in my reality is basically just me, except it's an alternate version of me. Where when I was in 5th grade, I discovered I had the ability to merge realities, and that happened when a bunch of stuff. There's like two versions of realities that are like running parallel. Is the factive verse, which is this, it's basically what we would describe this reality as, and the fictive verse. And something happened within the fictive verse that tore a hole between those two realities. And in 5th grade, I woke up and I like found out that I was like this extremely powerful being in the fictive verse. Which is why I say that it's really shocking to me, but reaffirmed shifting to me, is the fact that I was basically scripting that I figured out how to shift in 5th grade. I was basically writing a story where I just figured out how to shift. So as I learned about my script and as I channeled things, I realized that the Factiverse kind of fell to the wayside, and one of the events that is going to take place is that I permanently allow close off the portal between the Factiverse and the Fictiverse, because they were sort of negatively affecting each other, which is a thing that can happen when one reality is not ready to learn about the existence of another reality. It's kind of like how in Star Trek they only contact alien races who figured out how to go warp speed, because otherwise that reality wouldn't be ready. And so I I as a kid in that reality figure out that that is a thing that I do, and for most of the time before I shifted that I scripted that I shift there, I spend juggling the responsibilities of trying to be someone who has a great destiny in one reality and someone who's trying to just live a normal life in another reality. So kind of I'm basically mirroring what would happen between with a person who's figured out how to shift and now has to figure out how they're going to balance their CR with their DR. So I already had that built in of my DR basically just being about me shifting. As for who I am specifically in my DR, I'm a shapeshifter who usually takes the form of an anthropomorphic wolf, because I am a furry,
Mm.
which you wouldn't be able to tell by most of my TikTok content, but you could tell by my other content. And I am come from a lineage that's very similar to the Avatar lineage, and they're kind of opposites in the sense that the Avatar and the what is called the Yin Yang spirit both got their powers from the same sources in my reality of a deity who is the deity I work with named Lady Sophia, who basically gifts them the ability to gifts both the Avatar and the Yin Yang spirit the ability to travel back and forth and break the boundaries between different multiverses, and gives them both the ability to hold large amounts of magic to be able to turn it, to use it, to wield it however they want to. The trick is they have to be able to discover that magic and learn how to wield it, and they sort of incrementally go through the process of discovering the magic and discovering how to use it and how to wield it, and then they pass on the power to the next person, and then the next person builds off of the magic that they've unlocked within themselves and then adds on top of that, and it's like a generational kind of thing, very similar to the Avatar. It's kind of like a parallel version of the Avatar, that they balance themselves out, yin and yang, which is a very, very strong theme in both my practice and in that reality, the concept of balance as a whole. And in that reality, it's basically my duty to be literally the gatekeeper. I'm the person who uh, figures out who's going back and forth. I'm the person who stops darkness and things that are considered bad or unwanted or evil. I stop them from getting into my reality, either through multiverse travel, physical travel, and probably now through shifting. And my job is supposed to be to catalog and explore the multiverse and to reach out to people who need help and to run the organization, which was built off the principle of maintaining balance between different worlds, different universes, and then different countries and cultures on the planet that they formed. So I'm not the leader. I'm kind of the figure, the face of the organization, because I'm the one who was given the power to jump, kickstart the jumping between different realities. But I'm part of the council who makes decisions and does all that. I guess. So yeah, that's the gist of it. And one of the things that threw me off when I found out about shifting is how similarly my backstory in that reality sort of mirrored who I am here, and mirrored the concepts of shifting before I even knew about it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's really. I feel like each of our DR cells, we all have like something in common. You know that connects all of us. You know, it's a different version of us for a reason, but there's something similar enough to call it us in a way. So definitely, I find that very interesting. Like, it sounds like a lot of pressure. You know, defending your reality, but I can't even imagine. But that definitely sounds very interesting. How your lore is kind of like a cousin of the Avatar: The Last Airbender in a way. It's always so interesting hearing how people's DRs have their own unique little flavor to them per se. So I remember you mentioning how you mentioned something about magic and like does magic have like a sort of or magic I think is that how you pronounce it? I think does that have any sort of effect of your shifting journey or like how do you connect magic and shifting?
Well, one of the things I've learned is that there's it's not that there's two types of magic, but there's like two main ideas of magic. Magic with a K being just the the forces that are around us that we can learn to manipulate in whatever reality. So magic with a K is something that you can perform in any reality regardless of how regularly magical that reality would be considered. And then there's the magic without the K, which is basically the kind of magic you see, like earthbending, firebending, or magic in Harry Potter with wands, or magic in My Little Pony where the unicorns can levitate things, or alicorns can raise the sun and moon. And those would be magical expressions in different realities. And our reality has is one of the realities that has less amounts of magical expression where you can't like levitate something with your mind or you can't like cast a magic spell with a wand in a typical sense where you would see lights and fire and all that kind of stuff coming out of it, and we can't really grow wings and fly. But we can still learn to manipulate the energy around us, and that would be magic with the CK, which is learning to connect yourself with your energies and learning how your reality expresses magic. Because I'm a firm believer of the fact that just creativity and art in and of itself is people tapping into other realities and channeling that, whether they know it or not, and expressing magic through the creation of things. Because magic is like part of magic is the ability to like create things and like manifest things and shift yourself. Since I also believe that shifting is just experiencing life. We are shifting in this moment just by taking breaths, and like me choosing to pick up my phone is a reality. It's me shifting into a reality where I didn't leave my phone on the table, and that kind of stuff. So magic is the art of learning to sort of shift in a way and manipulate the energies around you. And manifesting, I even believe, is definitely a form of shifting. So
Yeah.
it magic with a CK, magic with a C, and shifting are definitely all interconnected. It's just the amount of how much magical energy expresses itself in our realities, where it's the energies themselves are the core of everything. The universe, the source, is just the core of everything and how we manipulate it and how we express it. And I definitely think that a reality that's not innately magical, with a C, can become magical through thousands of years of change. And I've definitely talked to people, to witches, who think that this reality definitely has the great potential to become a reality where people understand about shifting and multiverse travel and all that kind of stuff. But it definitely starts out simple, and it's I do definitely think that there's like ties between those three things, and in my reality it's expressed differently. It's expressed through unicorns with horns and people who can shapeshift and wizards who use wands and elves who can create spells and that kind of stuff. And in this reality it's more expressed through people who make art and people who make songs and that kind of stuff. but it's definitely all connected, and it's definitely all something you can learn to be in tune with through shifting and through manifesting.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree that the law of attraction and manifesting is definitely connected to shifting. I remember, and this is like my first experience of manifesting. I remember when I was like 12 or 11. For some reason, I just had I had such a like urge to eat an orange cream ice pop, and I remember I visualized it. I imagined what it tastes like, and I put energy and feeling into it. And I think that's tapping into what you were referred to as the magic. And I think because I put so much feeling and so much desire, and could imagine myself in a reality that I had it out of nowhere, never happened before. My mom brought home orange ice pops out of nowhere. She'd never done that before, and I feel like because I put so much energy and thought and imagining it, it kind of shifted me to reality where I had it. And that just kind of validated, like looking back at it now, like, holy crap, I must have shifted to a reality that I had it. And like you said, it's all tied together. And it's just like, especially people who don't believe in shifting, I think it's just like, I think everything's connected. I do believe in shifting because, like you said, we shift every moment of the day. Our thoughts, our actions are like a river. You know, it vibrates. We have different actions which will lead us to different paths. Like for example, we could have never. I could have never had put out that Reddit post to try to get people on this podcast. There could have been a reality where you're never on this podcast. Um, it's just like there are many unlimited choices that you can make, and I believe that is what shifting is. And to how it gets to the fictional realities, that's a whole nother question. I think there's just so many different things that take place that like just shape and separate all these different realities. But yeah, I definitely love how you kind of connected law of attraction and manifesting to magic and all that and shifting. It's definitely a big connection right there with these things. Let me think. Anything else I want to talk about? Is there like certain things or misconceptions about shifting that you wish people would kind of stop like mentioning? Like, do you want to break any misconceptions you heard about a lot to the viewers? Because I'm assuming that some of these viewers are learning about shifting or they want to learn more about it. So is there something you want to share to the viewers that could help break a common shifting misconception that you hear a lot?
It's not one misconception per se, it's just more of kind of what we were talking about. It's the fact that reality shifting isn't just the art of the ability to just go to a reality where fictional stuff is real. Shifting is every day. Like us experiencing time linearly is shifting because we are sort of always flowing in and out, weaving in and out of different realities. And if we would sort of keep in mind that shifting is so much bigger than just reality shifting, that shifting is a basically like a way to look at life, then I feel like it would come a lot more easier to people because then it wouldn't seem like such a stretch. And if people would just like realize that like there are beings who like don't experience time the same we do. There's like deities and gods that don't experience time linearly and they shift in different ways because they experience everything at once. But it's the fact that people separate shifting from like everyday life when shifting is just living. And so what if reality shifting, because reality shifting is a little bit different from regular shifting in the sense that in order to reality shift you must let go of your current conceptions of what you are currently perceiving to be expanded enough conscious wise to experience something else. And but if you realize that everything that you're experiencing is like subjective in a way because there are other realities where you are not experiencing that thing, and everything that you do is a form of shifting, manifesting, witchcraft, even just like religious activities in the sense of you're praying for something and then you receive that something, that's shifting. Whether or not you did it yourself or a deity did it for you is a different concept argument entirely, but it's the fact that shifting is so much more than what TikTok has made it. Shifting is so like so it's so much bigger, and there's so much stuff about it that we don't know, that a lot of the times the arguing on TikTok and the you can't do this or you can do that or you have to do this otherwise you won't shift is like really limiting, in the sense that it's narrowing our perspective, when really we should like realize that shifting can like people knowing about shifting can shift our entire reality as a whole, because like shifting, like you can shift for any kind of knowledge, you can shift to like do anything you want, and in a certain extent I've like I believe that like shifting can like not destroy, but not destroy in a bad way, but like reinvent our current society, because why would we be, if we can shift to a reality where we can have anything, why would we be spending money on all this stuff, all the materials and all the frivolous things of like luxury cars and luxury houses and luxury boats, and for something that we can just shift to have in another reality. And it's this idea that shifting puts things into perspective. Shifting really like makes you think about what is meaningful in your life, because like it's like, do I want it in this reality? Is this something that would benefit me in this reality? And it makes you think about what, yeah, what's important. And it's really something that we definitely need to research more, and it's something that we definitely need to understand. It can change our whole current reality. It can topple, like, if used correctly, through a combination of shifting for knowledge and shifting for a variety of reasons, it can topple the current power structures we have today, because it's just that big. And it's definitely also something that I'm glad, I'm almost, I don't want to say I'm glad, but I'm almost relieved that it hasn't reached out past the spiritual communities, because it is something that could change our entire reality. Because I know in my reality, when they discovered how to leave the universe that they were in, and when they discovered how to travel the multiverse, it completely toppled the systems of power in my reality, and it caused a bunch of people to have to reconsider what was important to them, because now it's not just them. Now it's not just us in this planet. Now it's like a whole series of universes, and now it's so many other people and so many other points of views and so many different things that we can't even comprehend. And it's a little bit saddening to just go on TikTok and see people arguing about different things, and arguing about little things that in the end ultimately don't matter. And it's probably almost, it could be a contributing factor to why more people haven't shifted, because they have these limiting beliefs, and they have all of this different things that's like weighing them down while they're trying to shift. And it's shifting is not just about like shifting your consciousness to a different reality. It's about shifting your perspective, and shifting our perspective from one where people care more about themselves and care more about being in power, than a reality where we want to help each other and like be more focused on each other than what would benefit just one person, is what I think reality shifting can lead to if we brought it down the right path. If we, like, as a community, started realizing that it's much bigger than us. It's more than just the little petty arguments and how much water you drink. It's about a whole entire series of multiverses that can bring us knowledge, that can help us deconstruct our systems and help us change our whole reality.
Yeah, I did like how you brought up, like, I always wondered, like, how would it, if shifting became mainstream, just like reading a book or watching a documentary was, how would that affect the entire world that we know it? I mean, it's so interesting because you think everybody like, oh God, I want to get out of here. Screw this world. I'm gonna shift to this reality or that reality. I just always wondered like, how would that really affect the world? I mean, because think about it. That means that this every single person within this world has their own unlimited potential. Some already know it, like us, and some don't. It's just very interesting thinking like if it was mainstream, would it be taught commonly? How would it be taught to people, children, stuff like that really. It's such a broad topic and it's interesting because even in our small community has a lot of controversy with it. So I can't even imagine the type of controversy that might come if it was more mainstream. And my next question I wanted to ask you was where do you see the shifting community going on over time? Like it's definitely like in a crossroads. It's definitely not as like it's not as it doesn't have the boom that it once did like 2 years ago, but it's definitely still alive and it has some engagement. Not as much as it used to. Do you see it kind of like stagnating or kind of ending up like astral projection or lucid dreaming, or do you think it's going to like have like a different sort of vibe to it over time?
I think as more people shift, um, or people who shift who come back to this reality, because I think what could also be happening is that a lot of people are shifting and they're just choosing not to come back, and they're almost in a sense taking some of the awareness of shifting, because as far as I know, once you perma-shift, the consciousness here stops trying to
Mm-hmm.
shift because you've already achieved that. But as we see more people shifting and then returning with more knowledge, we're going to get more people who are like, I think, going to start to realize what I said about shifting being just more than us, and they're going to start like trying to veer the community away from the petty drama and the limiting beliefs. And I think it will stay as like a niche spiritual belief that like caught up a wave in the pandemic because everyone was bored and was starting to like research ways to get out of their house, even if it was through meditation. But I think in a sense it's partially because our planet, the people in this reality as a whole, aren't like really ready to receive more. But I am seeing like a more wave of like spirituality in general picking up, and I think slowly but surely our reality, like it will probably take many lifetimes and it will probably take many generations, but I think our reality is taking steps to move away from people who are like fighting amongst themselves and racism and sexism and homophobia and bigotry and all that kind of stuff, and we're moving away from that and more towards realizing that there's more than just ourselves and we need to focus on working together. And I think shifting is going to be one of those things that helps. Shifting in spirituality as a whole is going to be one of those things that like helps push people, because those two things cause such an intense personal journey, and those things can cause kickstart people learning so much about themselves, and people like learning to set aside things that weren't helping them, or people learning how to like work through their issues and work through their do shadow work, which is a concept in witchcraft of working through your trauma and your baggage to help you do your practice better. And as people incorporate those beliefs into shifting and spirituality, and as people who are more mainstream realize that they have these tools to their disposal, I think overall it's just going to start moving our reality to a better direction. And even I've considered even the possibility of perma shifting, because I definitely I've definitely many times felt like this definitely wasn't the reality that I was supposed to have be my origin or main reality. So I've considered that, but I almost think I want to stick around just to see if I can't help more people out and help more people like learn things about themselves and help more people move from a mindset that is more negative to a mindset that is more positive. And I think we're going to see the shifting community within the spirituality community, within all of our world in general, be things that help people move from a more negative mindset to a more positive one. And I think it's gonna get better, and I think the more people shift and the more people come back to help like teach people about shifting, and relay what they've discovered, the better the community will get, and the less inaccurate misinformation will get spread around the community, because we will have more shifters who are shifting and coming back and shifting and coming back to be able to help clarify some of that misinformation.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's my plan. Like, hopefully, putting it into words. I shift one day. When I shift, I'm definitely intending to come back. Either whether that's making a podcast episode, making a YouTube video, or Reddit post, I want to describe my experiences and kind of like encourage people who haven't. Let's say, hey, I'm not making this up. This really did happen to me, and I want you to experience this too. That's my thing. I don't want to just shift in like. Maybe I might change my mind once I reach reality, but I would definitely love to come back and try to encourage people to keep on going through this journey, because there's a reason why people like me and you haven't quit, and it's been 2 years, because we know there's something in it. There's something rewarding. Our patience and all that stuff. Everything happens when it's meant to happen. That's how I view it. Whether you have it shifted or not, you shift it because you're meant to shift that moment, or you haven't shifted because you weren't meant to shift at that moment, really. So yeah, I mean, I definitely hope to see this community kind of grow its own little bubble where it remains consistent of shifters coming back and helping people, or just make sure to spread information which is valid, and try not to like cause so much controversy, and just try to just kind of view everybody's journey as subjective, really. Because it's always kind of sad seeing people argue or say you can't do this or this that on TikTok and all that, really. But my final question would be, is there anything you would want to mention to me, or you have any questions of me, or something you might want to bring into the ideals of the viewers? Because I'm a personally open book, so if you have any questions on me, or you just want to bring a topic so the viewers can discuss in the comments, you're feel free to, I don't know, just speak or ask anything, really.
I don't think there's one thing particularly that jumps out at me.
That's fine.
Um, it's more like I need to just doing this makes me kind of realize that I want to do this more often, because I've like amassed so much information about shifting in the past 2 years, and there's so many things that I've learned even before that, because I had a connection to shifting before that, and I don't get the chance to like write or like share about the information, because I'm like busy with my day-to-day life and work and college preparations and all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But I think it is important to have these discussions, because, if we're just keeping it all to ourselves, we're like, that's not how society progresses forward.
Yeah.
Like, communication is the key to like us progressing forward as a group, like group shifting together into the future we want. So these kind of conversations are important, even if it like seems pointless. It's not, because like thinking and just conversing is what'll get us forward. Like, the reason we've been able to make so much progress in the last couple decades was because of the internet and making communication easier. So I think it's important to have civil conversations and civil discussions with anybody, and especially in like communities like spirituality, where experience is so important, because it's not like anything that's as tangible as science. So we need to share our experiences, and we need to share these different points of views, and we need to share, especially amongst minority communities, which is, I think, super important. And so I would just urge everybody, and that goes to myself too, who's like hasn't been doing much of like writing, and I haven't been like, I even have like a question that I've been putting off answering on Reddit, because I just get busy with other things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to discuss, and it's important to talk, and it's especially important to remain civil and keep an open mind, and understand that everybody's opinions and perspectives are subjective, and that it's all like, it's all valid, even if it's like you don't see the same thing, you don't see things from the same point of view that I do, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, our listeners, and believe it or not, he really, just talking with him really, just really kind of brought some energy back to me. I just feel really excited to really kind of look at my scripts or think about my DRs, or even create a new one. Like just talking with him this last hour and 19 minutes has really brought back some sort of shifting GBs or shifting excitement to me. So definitely try to reach out, whether that's through Reddit or even a podcast. Like if you want to come on and talk, I mean, you can come talk to me or him. I mean, we can always set something up. So feel free to comment down below if you ever want to come on, or I'll definitely leave his TikTok, and if you're comfortable with it, I can leave your TikTok and your Reddit down below so they can try to contact you if you're interested.
Yeah, as for my social medias, I mostly talk about shifting and witchcraft on TikTok, Reddit, and occasionally on Tumblr. All of my other stuff, um, although I am considering if I start up YouTube again, because I did do YouTube when I was younger, I'm considering posting more videos about shifting and spirituality on my YouTube accounts that aren't for art. But most of what I do everywhere else is art, and most of the art I do is actually of stuff that has inspired me because of my desired reality and all of that. So I kind of do a combination of spirituality and art, which are like the two most important things for me. So TikTok, Reddit, and Tumblr for the spirituality side, and YouTube, Instagram, and I think I might make even an art TikTok for the art stuff. And it still all in a sense relates back to shifting, because all of the art I am creating is of stuff that I either probably will experience in my DR, or things that I think I might experience in my DR, or think I probably have experienced in my DR. So it's kind of funny how everything kind of circles back to shifting for me. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's where you can find me.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for listening to the second episode of the Shifter's Cove, and I want to thank again. I just want to thank you for coming on the show, and I really would love if you ever want to, you can come back on the show. We can talk about anything, because this has been a really long, great conversation. I love the energy, and I really feel like we covered a lot of topics that are really interesting for the audience to listen to. So I just want to thank you so much again for being my second guest.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on here. It's definitely great talking.
Of course. So everybody, thank you for listening. Hope you have fun. Have a great day. Happy shifting. Contact us or anything if you ever want to talk or come on. And peace and take care.